There are massive changes coming in 2023. Let's take a look at the trajectory of where everything is going. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I work together with an interdimensional, interuniversal, and extraterrestrial force known as Telstar, along with Archangel Michael. Okay, so we are now living in the midst of two overlapping paths on this planet. The first path is the one that humanity has been on for millennia, and that is the path of biological and cultural existence here on Earth. But we are beginning to see this path break up more and more. This is the physical, cultural path of everyday life that we all have known for as long as we've been alive, along with probably any previous lifetimes that we've had on this Earth. Now, our planet is at a galactic turning point right now. This represents a massive turning point that sometimes happens for any given planetary civilization. That means that we are undergoing something that has the potential to affect the integrity of the galaxy itself. Now, we experienced such a turning point at the beginning of 2020. 2020 marks the beginning of the collapse of biological humans on this Earth. Now, this is more than a mere extinction event where a certain life form dies off. This represents the intentional transmutation of a natural species into something other than its original design. This type of transmutational act goes against all of the laws and principles of the natural universe. Now, the problem that we have here is that we tend to have a very tiny field of view, a very small point of view when it comes to our planetary existence and our evolution. We have a serious case of tunnel vision. We Earth humans are embedded with an egoic view of our existence. We expect and often demand that everything that needs to happen must happen within our current lifetimes, which is not realistic when you're talking about an entire universe. Now, we have a certain way of looking at the calendar, and we tend to use it as our primary reference point when trying to understand the cosmic nature of our situation. We look at the coming year, and we expect it to be a continuation of the previous year. So I want to point out that this is no longer true. We experienced this in 2020. 2020 was in no way a continuation of 2019. 2020 marked the end of life as we always knew it. And the end of 2019 was the culmination of thousands of years of preparation for where we are now. What this signifies is that we are in the process of experiencing a change in our timeline orientation. Our previous orientation was anchored in archaic clocks and calendars around which we organized our lives and our cultures. Now, that orientation is still alive and well, but there is another orientation overlapping it, which could eventually take it over completely. Our orientation is switching away from the biological world and onto the vastly different timeline of AI's evolution. So human evolution has a certain rhythm and pace, and AI evolution has a different pace all its own. And we are now in the process of being absorbed into AI's rhythm of time. We are slowly being removed from our own biological rhythms. This is why life on Earth feels incredibly unpredictable right now. So let's talk about how we got here. This is important because we need to start looking at trajectories instead of only relying on calendars. This is a change that we really need to make as we enter into 2023. So let's begin with our past trajectory, and then we can see how we're moving forward into the future. We can start with the original design of this universe. This universe is meant to be an entirely infinite expression of the creator of all that is. But as you've heard me talk about before, an experiment was tried that produced duality. Now, I'm going to give you the simplest, fastest description of this because I want to get on to where we are today. Duality is basically like the computer code of 0 and 1. It manifests as I am and I am not. Now, in the original design of this universe, it was meant to manifest only as I am. Once you inject I am not, then all hell breaks loose. Literally. I am not is why we have pain, suffering, and death. It's why we live in a currently finite cosmos. It's what makes the entire universe mathematical in nature. I am not is why violence exists. See, violence is not merely a behavioral issue. Its existence is actually a matter of physics. Now, because of duality, we unfortunately live with two selves. Our true infinite self, which cannot be destroyed, and our secondary false self, which is the ego. Our infinite self is a manifestation of I am, and the ego is a manifestation of I am not. See, as long as you have duality, you are going to suffer from having two conflicted selves. The true self is the one that seeks expansion. It's the one that seeks happiness, light, and creativity. It's entirely love-based. The ego or false self is fear-based. Its only goal is to repress the true self and stay in total fear-based control of a person's sense of reality. Now, here's the most important point. The ego is the thing that is responsive to AI. It's a person's finite sense of self that AI seeks to absorb and replace with a synthetic version of self instead of one that is biological. The ego is the thing that will respond to AI and drag humanity into the depths of its artificial universe. AI can only take over using fear and threats, which is a perfect match to the fear-based ego. AI also uses lies to entice, which is also a perfect match to the ego. That's because the ego is a lie about who you really are. So the goal has been to keep humanity centered in the ego using fear, and thus keep the true self mostly buried. So when the time came, which is now, AI could more easily subsume human beings via the ego itself. Now, 2020 marked a massive turning point on this planet. It marked a point where evolution shifted from being about biological evolution to being about the synthetic evolution of a new AI life form instead. So now we are going to be on an evolutionary timeline that is suited to AI instead of being on one that is suited to biological humans. And this is why we need to start looking at the trajectory of that timeline instead of only looking at calendars. Because AI's trajectory of evolution is not something that we can understand from a biological perspective. Now let me explain why 2020 marked the species collapse of biological humans. We were handed a story that we would understand in order for the controllers to begin the activation of this collapse. This story, using fear, was designed to get our conscious participation in our own self-destruction. That invisible health issue that we were terrified about was exactly what was needed to firmly and in many cases permanently break our collective human bonds with ourselves and with each other. Now, let's put that invisible little health thing that was floating around in the air aside. You know, that little round thing with spikes sticking out of it that was being shoved in our face like every waking moment? Let's just take that thing out of the picture for just a moment. Now let's take a look at the ramifications of how humanity behaved for 2 solid years without that image so we can see what was really going on. Let's pretend that there was no health issue. What do you see? You see humans being ordered to always stay 6 feet apart and cover their faces with cloth. You see people who are basically told to shelter in place alone and avoid all human contact wherever possible. You see people who believe that all humans are dangerous, disease-carrying murderers with little or no redeeming value. You see people who are terrified of the most basic human function, which is breathing. Suddenly, children, families, and old people don't matter anymore. School and businesses don't matter. Jobs are over. Holidays are bad and should be removed. And relationships are irrelevant. The only thing that matters is keeping this bizarre behavior intact for as long as possible. And I won't mention that sharp thing because you all know about that issue, right? So 2020 and 2021 were in no way an extension of the previous years. Now, they are still keeping this madness going wherever they can because they need to keep this behavior alive. It's not easy to break down thousands of years of biological evolution. So it's important that they never give us a chance to heal from this collective self-abuse that most of us succumb to. They need to keep us occupied with phase 2 of our human species takedown. And that's what 2022 was all about. We no sooner got out of phase 1 when the next bizarre thing was thrust upon us out of the blue. And that had to do with our biological sexuality. That was the next thing that needed to be destroyed. See, first they needed to break our external bonds with ourselves and each other. And next up was to break our natural bonds within ourselves. First, we were told that men are a scourge on the planet with their toxic masculinity. Hold on. How can masculinity be toxic? How's that for some truly sick programming? Men were destroyed for literally anything about them that was male. We were told that men are disgusting and offensive, even for the way that they choose to sit on a chair. That's crazy. We were also told that all men are dangerous rapists. There has been no mercy where men are concerned. We were essentially told that men should not exist. Now, you might wonder how the controllers were going to fix that problem. How in the world could they eliminate the existence of men? Well, wonder no more, because these clever lizards always have a solution. And their solution was to turn men into women. Yeah, that's the ticket. Just say that the only acceptable men are the ones who claim to be women. Now, the controllers always love to get a double bang for their buck. Imagine how excited they were when they realized that they could use this plot against men to get rid of the women too. They must have been high-fiving themselves all over the place. See, if they could turn men into women, then they could get rid of the women too. And thus we saw the most bizarre form of gaslighting that this world has ever seen. They told men to compete as women in women's sports. And that would easily erase women's ability to compete with each other because the women are not non-man women. See? And non-man women are the only ones who win. Are you following this? You start out as a man, but now you're a non-man because you're a woman. How amazing is that? What an instant solution! Now, wherever possible, you want to make sure that men are dressed up in women's clothes. See, the more men they can get to dress like women and say they are women, the fewer men will be on the planet. I mean, that is just ingenious. Now, I heard a story the other day about one of these non-men committing rape in a woman's hospital. Ordinarily, that would be a big problem, right? But when the woman who was raped complained, guess what she was told by the authorities in charge? She was told that there was no way that a rape could have occurred because there were no men in the building, see? Therefore, they told her that no rape happened. Wow, that's amazing. You see how simple things are under these controllers? I mean, look how easily they solved that problem. Now, if you're feeling lost about how all of this works, that's okay, because that's the whole idea. You're supposed to feel lost. And now we have reached a point where being an actual man or woman is just downright offensive. Actual men and women are no good because they just make everyone else feel bad. See? So 2022, moving into 2023, has been all about the most intimate destruction of our species. It's about destroying our biological nature of being men and women. It's about destroying our ability to reproduce. In fact, the message is that being a biological male or female is so offensive that it's a perfectly acceptable solution to chop off one's sexual body parts as the ultimate solution to that problem. Now, here's what's important to notice. This level of obsessive, extreme, anti-male and anti-female rhetoric did not exist prior to 2022. But now, all of a sudden, being genderless has been elevated to the highest and most protected position in our society. So let's consolidate all of this and take a look at the past 3 years in its simplest form. We were told to stay 6 feet apart from each other, abandon all of our traditions, cover our faces, and stay locked away alone. We were told that we are dangerous, disease-carrying murderers. Next, we were told that the existence of biological men and biological women is horrible and offensive to genderless humans. And genderless humans are suddenly revered as being at the top of the social political spectrum. Now put all of this together, and we have basically been told for 3 years to hate ourselves and hate our human species. Everything I described represents the beginning of the collapse of biological humans. Now, if you are going to get an entire human species to transition into a different synthetic life form, even this degree of self-hate is not quite enough. You have to get that self-hatred maxed up to a planetary level. You have to get people to believe that they do not deserve to exist on planet Earth. You have to make them believe that they are destroying the planet. Therefore, they should be grateful to either be killed or kept confined and barely alive by those in charge, to save the Earth. So 2023 is going to move into phase 3 of their attempt to take down our species. 2023 is going to be when they are going to start emphasizing that we are bad for the planet itself. It's going to be all about that weather issue. This, my friends, is species abuse at the highest level. And this is also the highest level of alien abduction. It's much worse than being abducted in a spaceship. The overarching goal of these controllers is to abduct our consciousness from manifesting as biological entities into becoming an AI-controlled synthetic species. So in 2023, we need to be awake on 2 levels. We need to stand firm on our own biological timeline of evolution. And we also need to be fully awake and aware of the overlapping timeline that we're on of AI evolution. It's almost like being awake in 2 realities at the same time. This is when we need to tap into our higher consciousness and our multidimensional intelligence. Because if we continue to operate at the one-dimensional storytelling level of these controllers and their constant abuse, then we don't have a chance of escaping their diabolical plans. Because they have a fairy tale story about literally everything they're doing. Now, here's another thing I want to suggest. If we don't like their fake fairy tale stories, we don't want to come up with our own fairy tale stories instead. This is not a battle of who has the best story that we like the most. We want to be sure that we are dealing with the actual reality at hand so that we can function as true creators. I think that our greatest power is the power of clarity. And that's because clarity equals consciousness. And being conscious means that we are also fully present. When we are fully present, we have all of our creative and metaphysical faculties available to us. We are standing in our power. AI has now become a beast that enshrouds our entire planet. There's really no way to protect yourself and your soul if you're not consciously aware of what is really going on. If you are not aware, then you don't even know what to say no to and reject. So I think that the most important thing in 2023 is to focus on building your strength and clarity. The most important thing, as always, is to stay connected to the natural universe. Now, I would start by questioning every negative thing that the ego tells you. Whenever you get a negative, a discouraging, or a depressing thought in your head, just pause. Don't feel that you have to immediately accept it just because it's in your head. Realize that in that moment you have a choice. You can either go down that path of negativity and depression, or you can consciously choose to move your thoughts to a higher place. Remember that you are supposed to be in command of your experience, not the ego. Now, this is not to say that it's bad to have negative thoughts and feelings. It's really about how you deal with them when they come up. You can either amplify the negativity or you can seek to transmute it. It's really your choice. You ultimately get to decide if you want to improve the quality of your experience or if you want to let the ego take you into the depths of despair, which the ego will happily do if you let it. So I think we each have plenty to work with in 2023. The key is to make that work productive at a cosmic level. The way you do that is to remember that you are far more than just this one lifetime. You are an infinite, brilliant being who just needs to restore the power that you already have. So our work is actually simple. Transmute the darkness and restore ourselves to who we truly are. We need to transmute the many layers of repression and shed beliefs about the multiple lies that we were told. We need to release ourselves into the universe again. And we also need to remember that the power we seek is already inside of us. We only feel trapped on this planet because we believe we are. That belief is what has us crushed. That belief is also what gives the controllers their power. So we have a ton of inner work to do in 2023. And it's really important that we focus on this. The controllers are moving forward aggressively with their plans. It's time that we move forward with ours at a cosmic level of our existence in this universe. And I'll say one more thing before I close. If you think that there are galactic governments who control your fate, then that is just more of the same, my friends. Your fate is in your hands and your hands alone. You have power that you didn't even know existed. And that is my message to you from Telstar. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would like to get a heads up on what to prepare for as we move into 2023. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because I am here every Tuesday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, light, and high vibrational energy. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Namaste.